So what's going on, guys? My name's Chopper, and welcome everybody back to a brand new video. Now, today, guys, we're going to be taking an in-depth comparison of the Micro Uzi and the Vector, because these two weapons are pretty much the kings of PUBG right now, but they're very similar in their statistics, so it's not entirely clear about which one you should run. So we're going to go ahead and break both of them down today and figure out which one of the two you should be running and when, and also why. So you should come away with this video with a pretty good understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of both of these weapons. Now, if you guys end up enjoying today's video, then I would really appreciate if you could go ahead and drop a like rating. We're gonna go for 2,500 likes. You guys have shown an unbelievable amount of support recently on the channel. I know you guys could absolutely smash this goal. And as always, if you are brand new around here and you haven't already subscribed, make sure to go ahead and do that, as we are dangerously close to 250,000 subscribers, and that's an unbelievable goal. And last but not least, guys, one quick announcement. I'm streaming every single day over on Twitch, so if you haven't already followed the channel and you want to catch me play some PUBG live, then make sure you click the link in the description, go follow over there, and we'll see you for the streams. With that being said, guys, let's get into this big comparison of the Uzi and the Vector. So we'll start by getting an understanding of the Micro Uzi, but you might be asking yourself, well, why isn't the UMP in this running? Well, the thing is, these two weapons, the Vector and the Micro Uzi, are the closest together as far as statistics, and the UMP is kind of off on its own plane and it doesn't really compete. So to begin with the Micro Uzi, you're going to notice a couple of things right off the bat. If you haven't played since the most recent patch, you can now attach sights to this weapon, which makes it significantly more viable. You can attach a red dot and a holographic, but those are it. No scopes or any sort of that nature can be put on this weapon. It can take a variety of muzzle attachments. You can run the suppressor, the flash hider, or the compensator for the Uzi. You can run the red dot, of course, the extended mag, and it also has its own very specific stock. So one of the first questions you might be asking yourself about this weapon is, what is the ideal optimal attachment setup? And I'd say, well, that actually kind of depends on how you want to play it, because this can be played in a variety of different manners. However, the one thing I will say you absolutely need, regardless of your playstyle with the Micro Uzi, is going to be the extended mag. This is going to take you from a base 25 all the way up to 35, which is a 10 bullet increase. Now, that's pretty good, but even just the base 25 is not too bad on this weapon. But as we've discussed at length before, having those extra bullets is oftentimes the deciding factor between winning and losing a gun battle. Now, the base damage per bullet with the Micro Uzi is 26. That's how much damage per shot on default you're going to deal if an enemy is not wearing any armor, but that's highly unlikely. And the body impact power of the Micro Uzi per bullet is around 5,000, and that's actually pretty good comparatively to the M416, something like that, where it's around 3,500, and that seems to be about average. But the Micro Uzi at 5,000, you're going to be dealing that much more body impact power, and that will cause flinch or aim punch to your enemy as soon as you land every bullet. Now, the time between shots with this weapon is 0.048 seconds, and that's incredibly fast. That means your fire rate, it means the Uzi is an absolute bullet hose. So you can see, regardless of your playstyle with this, you're going to need that extended mag. But let's talk about the different ways you can run the weapon. Now, the Micro Uzi can be definitely run without a sight. However, I wouldn't recommend it to most players. A red dot or a hollow is really going to help improve your overall aim with this. For the muzzle attachment, I really recommend either the suppressor or the compensator. The flash hider doesn't really seem to do too much for this, except for kind of cutting down on that muzzle flare. And because the recoil and kick on this weapon can be so violently horizontal, the compensator works absolute wonders for it. And the suppressor, on the other hand, is absolutely phenomenal if you want to keep your location hidden, because the bullets are so small anyway, they're a little bit hard to track, and the gun is kind of quiet when you have the suppressor on it. Sometimes I honestly recommend running both attachments, like having one that you can swap out for the other, running the suppressor when you need to stay hidden, but as the circle closes and the late game approaches, running the compensator as your position doesn't matter as much. Now, the operative attachment here with the Micro Uzi that you may want to consider is the stock, because while you do get a 20% reduction in your recoil pattern, as well as 20% reduced in your vertical recoil, it is going to slightly slower your aim down sight speed. And while that is a pretty minuscule effect, it can still matter to some players if you're going to be ADSing a lot. Now, I honestly don't recommend you ADS all the time with the Micro Uzi, especially within close quarters combat, because hip fire is a little bit faster and it's pretty much just as deadly. But it's still something to consider if you want just a vertical recoil reduction and an easier to handle weapon while aiming, then you're gonna want the stock. But if you just want something that's gonna be better for hip firing, then go without it, honestly. In my personal opinion, I often, however, do go for the stock, because you do get that amazing recoil reduction plus recoil recovery within that, and you only have to sacrifice maybe a couple of frames of aiming down the sights. It's also worth noting that you have 25 in the standard magazine with this without the extended, so it's much better in the early game as compared to the Vector, which only holds 19. And when it comes to the comparison between the two, this is probably a better early game weapon in my opinion. While the Uzi is much less customizable than the Vector and it's overall a little bit weaker, especially at a range, the Micro Uzi still has its place in the meta and can be an unbelievably dangerous weapon when used correctly. It also has slightly better handling properties when neither of the weapons have any attachments. If you haven't put anything on them, the Micro Uzi honestly might be a little bit easier for you to handle. The spray patterns are more or less the same, with the Micro Uzi having a little bit more horizontal, which is the harder one to control, but more or less they are pretty similar. So let's talk about the Vector really quickly, which has a little bit more going on with it. Now, remember the initial bullet damage of the Uzi was 26. The Vector, however, is actually at 31, and the bullet speed between these two weapons is identical. It's exactly the same, but the body impact power on the Uzi was 5,000, but on the Vector it's 7,000. The Vector's rate of fire, however, is very slightly slower than the Uzi's. Overall, this weapon is going to hit a little bit harder, and it's going to fire almost as fast as the Uzi, however, not quite as much. Theoretically, the time to kill for this weapon should be slightly faster in most cases. However, let's talk about the customizability that it has. The Vector differs significantly from the Micro Uzi in the way that it can run a grip. Now, the interesting thing about the Vector is that it cannot actually use every grip in the game. The thumb grip and the angled are not compatible on this weapon, so really the only choices are vertical, half grip, or light grip. And in my personal opinion, the vertical grip should always be your #1 choice if that's available. If not, then I would definitely go with the half grip. However, that does come with some negatives, that being mostly a drop in weapon stability, and that can sometimes cause your weapon to feel very inconsistent. And so the vertical grip is always a great choice because it doesn't come with any of those downsides, and you get a huge cut into that vertical recoil. The light grip should probably be your last choice for this weapon, even if you're choosing to run a scope on the Vector, just because the light grip is really only good for single tapping for the most part, and you're really not going to end up using it on this weapon. Oddly enough, I really feel like the angled grip would not be a bad choice on this weapon. However, they're just not ever compatible, so the vertical or the horizontal recoil that you would get out of that angled grip is just not an option on here. The unfortunate thing about the Vector is that without the extended mag, it only holds 19 in the magazine. That's 6 less than what the Uzi holds on default. And to be honest, in the early game, that can hurt quite a lot. If you cannot find an extended mag, maybe you're just getting really unlucky, then this weapon is going to suffer from it. The Uzi, maybe not so much, but certainly this gun. Stock is also a pretty important attachment to have on the Vector. I really consider it maybe being the backbone of this weapon, besides the grip and besides the obvious key one you need, which is the extended mag. The Vector, in order for it to be effective, really requires all of these components, and unfortunately, that doesn't always line up all the time. The Uzi is way easier to customize and get fully kitted out than the Vector is. However, what you do get in return if you fully customize it is an SMG that hits a little bit harder, that's definitely more powerful, and only holds 2 less bullets when you compare the extended mag side by side. Now, we talked about the Uzi having multiple functions for playstyles, but the Vector has even more. You can run the suppressor and try to keep that kind of low-key playstyle going, but you can also throw on a scope and put on a compensator if you want to just beam people out of medium range. Especially with armor, it's very effective at doing so. However, the strong suit with both these weapons, regardless if it's the Uzi or the Vector, is it shreds level 3 armor like it's nobody's business. Some of you may know that the current meta in PUBG with SMGs is that the damage that is caused to limbs by these weapons in particular is basically the same as shooting someone in the head. So the way to kill somebody quickly with level 3 armor is by shooting them in the arms or legs. I know, that's a very strange concept, but that's how the damage tables with these weapons work out right now. So which gun is better at doing that in particular? This is where we really have to come off of just the paper statistics and really look at what you kind of face in game. Now, while the Micro Uzi does overall do less damage per bullet, it does have a slightly faster fire rate, and it also has a bigger magazine size. Meaning, theoretically speaking, with an enemy that's close and fully armored out, it's going to kill very, very fast. Now, where does the Vector stack up against that? It turns out with the Vector, the time to kill is going to be very slightly faster than the Micro Uzi, assuming that you hit all of your shots. The extra damage on the Vector is going to add up over time with all of these costs per bullets. So in that case, the Vector is still the best choice if you're going to be running a weapon fully kitted out. This should be your go-to. However, theoretically speaking, is not the same thing as what happens practically in game. I actually say the Uzi might be a better choice for you if you're not able to find the extended mag, because having 6 more bullets in a situation like that, where you may be missing some if you're fighting an enemy who's, ducking behind cover, those might be the ones that win the gunfight. Also, if you're not fully confident in yourself customizing out the Vector and using it in a multitude of different ways, the Uzi is also a little bit easier to learn on the skill gap, in my opinion. But for more experienced players who just want a dangerous melt machine that they can play to any style of their liking, the Vector seems to be the clear-cut choice. Both of these weapons are fantastic for killing armored players quickly, and they work great in a synergy with DMRs or sniper rifles. However, one big downside to both of these guns And this is really important to know depending on how you like to play, is that both of these SMGs are really not very good at all at shooting out vehicles, either blowing them up just by shooting them as they drive by or trying to hit the driver out of the seat. In both circumstances, you may find this a little bit harder than using an assault rifle because of the slower bullet travel time and as well as just as many as you need to hit, and it can be tough to land consecutive shots in a moving target. So sometimes it's not a bad idea to either run a DMR or even an assault rifle in your back pocket for shooting cars, because they're just simply more effective at doing that. But overall, looking at the two, when it comes to player-on-player combat, assuming both weapons are fully kitted out, it looks like the Vector is going to be your clear-cut choice. However, when the weapons have absolutely no attachments on them, the Micro Uzi, especially in the early game, might actually be the go-to. In the early game, however, I would actually suggest running the Uzi if you have the choice, because those extra bullets, if you don't have the extended mag, will probably be the deciding factor. So it's always a close choice between these guns. At the end of the day, I will say the Vector has, just because of its customizability, the edge over the Micro Uzi. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you guys did enjoy the video today, make sure to go ahead and drop a like rating on the video, subscribe if you are brand new, and make sure to go follow me on Twitch. Link will be down below in the description, where I'm going to be streaming tonight and also every single night as well. If you want to watch me playing PUBG, it'll be down below. But anyways, guys, thank you all for watching again. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all on the next live stream or the next video. Take it easy and peace out.